It started like most desperate moves do, with too much hope, not enough money, and the kind of exhaustion that makes you ignore red flags on sight. Darren had just pulled himself out of a long, slow disaster, a breakup that left his heart raw, a job that left him drained, and a string of nights on friends' couches that made him feel like a ghost in his own life. So when he found the listing for a 6th-floor studio apartment at a fraction of the city's usual rent, he didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions. He just called, signed, and moved. The building was ugly in a way old buildings forget to hide. Cracked yellow brick, narrow stairwells, and a rust-streaked elevator that groaned like it was begging for rest. The apartment itself was small, with warped wooden floors and a smell that clung to the curtains, mold and metal and something sweet underneath, like rotting fruit. The landlord, a pale man who never met his eyes, handed him the keys with a stiff smile and said, "No one else on this floor. You'll like the quiet." Darren, too tired to be suspicious, smiled back. He didn't ask why it had been vacant so long. He didn't ask about the stains on the ceiling or the way the light bulbs flickered even when they were new. He just moved in with a suitcase, a mattress he unrolled on the floor, and a small box of things he still believed in. Books, a photo of his sister, a coffee mug he refused to throw away. The first couple of days were uneventful, and Darren let himself relax into the silence. The building didn't creak like older places. No, it breathed. There was a low vibration in the walls at all times, just beneath hearing. He told himself it was plumbing or old wiring. The air vents exhaled warmth inconsistently, sometimes hissing to life in the middle of the night. The corners of the room stayed colder than the center. The windows, no matter how tight he shut them, always let in just a little too much wind. But it was fine. He lit a candle, unpacked his books, and tried to reclaim a version of peace. Then on the third night, just past 3 a.m., he woke up suddenly, completely. Not from a dream, not from a noise, but from something worse, the unmistakable feeling that someone was standing in the room with him, not near him, but watching him. The air felt pressed in, heavy with expectation. He sat up slowly, skin prickling, breath shallow. The room looked normal, his coat on the chair, the moonlight spilling in through the cracked blinds, the shadow of his lamp stretching long against the wall. But something was wrong. He couldn't say what. Then he heard it, a voice, not loud, not clear, but close. A whisper so thin it almost wasn't a sound at all. It came from the air vent near the floor, low and metallic, like words pulled through a throat made of wire. He froze, crawled toward it on instinct, pressed his ear to the vent's cold metal grate. And what he heard wasn't a draft or a breeze. It was language. 2 voices, speaking fast in a rhythm he didn't recognize, like chanting or arguing or conspiring. Not angry, but urgent. There was no one else on the floor. He was sure of it. He had checked, and yet someone was speaking, somewhere beneath him or inside the walls. He crawled across the creaky floorboards, heart thudding louder with each breath, until he was face to face with the vent. The metal was cold beneath his fingertips, sharp around the edges, like it hadn't been touched in decades. He hesitated, then leaned in, pressing his ear gently against the grate. The sound was clearer now. Not noise, not air. Voices, 2 of them. They spoke quickly in a strange, breathy rhythm, like wind catching on words, like someone whispering too fast to follow. The language didn't sound like anything Darren recognized. It wasn't quite human either. Too smooth, too deliberate. But it wasn't chaotic. They weren't arguing. No, it was something worse. They were calm, focused. It sounded like they were planning something, scheming in the dark. The longer he listened, the more he felt they knew he was there. The pauses between words started to feel like acknowledgement, like they were giving him time to process, like they were waiting for him to understand. The next morning, he didn't even make coffee. He went straight to the hallway down one floor and knocked hard on the door to apartment 5A. His knuckles echoed through the silence, sharp and unanswered. He waited, knocked again, then leaned down to the peephole. The apartment was dark, the curtains drawn, but a thin shaft of light broke through a crack somewhere, catching the dust in the air. That was all he could see, dust and stillness, no furniture, no movement, no life. The room looked frozen, like no one had entered it in years, just dry air and time. Something in him sank. He stood there longer than he should have, staring at that unmoving light, listening for any hint of sound from behind the door. Nothing came. Eventually he turned and went back upstairs, the silence in the hallway heavier now. Later that day, he cornered the landlord outside the building, trying to sound casual. "Hey, has anyone moved into 5A?" The man looked up from his keys, confused for a second. Then his eyes sharpened, and he blinked like someone waking up from a deep sleep. 5A, he repeated, voice flat. "Number that unit's been empty for years, no one stays there long." Then with a half smile that didn't reach his eyes, he added, "Just like 6A used to be." The next few nights got way worse. The voices didn't just come back, they got louder, closer. Sometimes they were laughing, quiet, weird laughter, like someone trying not to be heard. Other times they whispered for hours, saying the same thing over and over. Darren couldn't make out the words, but it wasn't random. It felt like they were practicing something. Then one night he heard crying, not loud but sharp, scared, like a kid crying into a pillow. That one almost broke him. He sat up, phone in hand, ready to call someone. But who? The cops? And say what? "Hi, yeah, there's something crying in my vents?" No way. He just sat there listening, doing nothing. Then they started saying his name. The first time it came slow, drawn out. Darren. It was just one word, but it made him stop breathing. He had been half asleep, but now he was wide awake. The way it said his name, it wasn't angry. It was careful, curious, like it had just learned how to say it. The next night, it happened again. "Darren, Darren." The voice was clearer this time. Then the third night, "Darren, come down." That was it. He got up, pulled off the vent cover, and shined a flashlight inside, expecting to find anything. Rats, a speaker, a hole in the wall. But there was just darkness. The duct stretched on way too far, way deeper than any vent should go. He dropped a marble inside just to see what would happen. No sound. It just kept rolling and rolling, then nothing. By the end of the week, Darren had stopped sleeping. The voices came every night, and now there were 3 of them. One was high and fast, like it was whispering straight into his ear. One was deep, slow, barely a whisper. And the third didn't speak at all. It just breathed. Long, shaky breaths, like someone who was sick or just barely holding on. Sometimes they only said his name. Other times they said other things. "We see you." "You're not supposed to be here." "Come where it's warm." Darren tried calling the landlord, but he never answered. The front office was always locked. It was like the guy vanished, like no one remembered Darren was even there. Then the dream started. Every night he saw the same place. A long hallway, concrete walls, flickering lights, vents everywhere. No doors, no windows, just the vents. And from each one, voices, always whispering, always reaching. At the end of the hallway, there was a door marked 6A, just like his apartment. But this one wasn't familiar. The number was scratched into the wall, like someone had carved it in with a nail. Something waited behind it. He never opened the door in the dream. He always woke up just before. Then came the last night. He woke up freezing. The air felt heavy and wet. The windows were fogged over, And everything, his bed, his clothes, the walls, was damp. Like the whole place had been soaked in cold air. The vent cover was gone, just missing. And from inside the duct, he didn't hear whispers. He heard footsteps, slow ones, software dragging across metal. Then something reached out. A hand, long fingers, gray skin, grabbing the edge of the vent like it was pulling itself through. That's when Darren ran. When the police showed up hours later, the door to 6A was wide open. Inside, the place was empty. No furniture, no mattress, no signs that anyone had ever lived there. Just an open vent and a smell like mold. They searched the building top to bottom. No sign of Darren. And apartment 5A, still sealed, rusted over, power disconnected. But officers said later that during the search, some of them heard it too, breathing from inside the walls. The building is still there. The rent's still cheap. Just make sure, if you ever move into 6A, you don't fall asleep at 3:33 a.m.